Ford is in trouble. Is this the end of the American automaker? Ford has been a staple of the American auto industry for over 100 years. But in recent years, the company has been struggling. It has lost billions of dollars and has been forced to lay off literally thousands of workers. Now there are reports that Ford is considering selling its entire car and truck business. If this happens, it would end Ford as we know it. In this video, we're going to take a look at what's going on at Ford. We'll discuss the company's financial problems, recent layoffs, and the possibility of a sale. But before getting into this, make sure to subscribe to our channel and like the video. Ford CEO Jim Farley might have just made the biggest blunder of his career, and it's becoming a nightmare for Ford. Here's the lowdown. Ford dealers pull a fast one on customers while the CEO pushes electric cars, EVs on everyone. The situation gets even more complicated as Ford workers demand hefty pay, raises of up to 46%, and a cushy 32-hour work week. This mess could potentially sink Ford. Adding fuel to the fire, Ford is on track to lose a staggering $3 billion on EVs this year because folks aren't buying into the electric car craze. In fact, Ford is hemorrhaging cash, nearly $60,000 down the drain for every EV sold in the first quarter of this year. And there's a shadowy side to this story too. Ford's caught up in some shady dealer schemes. Remember when Ford used to be the go-to for dependable and affordable rides? Well, those days seem long gone. They've lost touch with their customer base, trying to hawk pricier cars that aren't winning anyone over. So what's the result? Ford's staring down the barrel of a financial catastrophe. And it's not just them. The entire auto industry's on the brink. Could this spell the end for Jim Farley and Ford? Let's dig into the nitty-gritty of what caused this colossal collapse. Ford's lagging in the EV race, selling cars at a loss. And now, they've got a worker strike on their hands that could cost them over $5 billion. The United Auto Workers Union UAW demands a hefty 46% pay raise and a breezy 32-hour work week. Ford's counteroffer falls far from the mark, and the UAW is ready to throw down the gauntlet. In a bid to dodge a strike, Ford's CEO Jim Farley has upped the ante on their offer. But it might still not be enough to avert disaster. Ford's got its heart set on its American workforce, unlike GM and Stellantis, who've shipped their production off to Mexico. But here's the kicker. Tensions are running high, and workers are feeling the heat. Just when Ford thought it couldn't get any worse, their EV sector was taking a nosedive. They're selling electric cars at a loss, and the sales figures aren't pretty. People just aren't biting. But the story has a twist. Ford's also tangled up in some dubious dealings with their dealers. Now let's switch our focus gears and talk about how Ford's electrification plans are bleeding money like a broken faucet. Their EV sector is a financial black hole, and here's why. Ford's losing a colossal $3 billion on EVs this year because folks aren't exactly lining up to buy electric Fords. It's a hard truth, but there it is. To put it into perspective, for every electric vehicle they sell in the first quarter of this year, they're waving goodbye to nearly $60,000. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. A whole bunch of shady stuff is going on with Ford's dealers. These dealerships, once trusted havens for car buyers, are now in the spotlight for all the wrong reasons. Visualize yourself walking into a Ford dealership, thinking you're getting a fair deal. But behind the scenes, they're playing games with your money. It's like a magic trick, but instead of pulling rabbits out of hats, they're pulling dollars out of your wallet. So, what's next for Ford? Well, they're desperately trying to dodge that looming worker strike. A few days ago, they sweetened the pot, bumping their offer from a measly 9% to a more respectable 15%. Negotiations are heating up at Ford's world headquarters in Dearborn, with both sides trying to hammer out a deal before the September 14th deadline. Ford's initial proposal included a 5% wage boost in the first year, performance bonuses, cost of living adjustments, and some sweet ratification bonuses for permanent and temporary workers. But here's the kicker. The UAW president, Sinn Féin, wasn't having it. He called Ford's offer an insult, and that's when things started to heat up. Negotiators have been burning the midnight oil, hashing things out from dawn till dusk. Top dogs like UAW Vice President Chuck Browning have jumped into the fray, showing the high stakes. Ford CEO Jim Farley and Executive Chair Bill Ford are also getting their hands dirty, leading strategy meetings and talks. Ford's trying to set itself apart by sticking to its American roots. Unlike its rivals, they're not outsourcing production to Mexico to save a few bucks. They're proud of their American workforce and manufacturing. Even their F-Series trucks are made in the USA. A big chunk of their cars stays on home turf too. Ford's gone the extra mile by promoting temporary workers to full-time positions and airing TV ads to drive home the point. But with the tension in negotiations and the massive losses in their EV division, this strike could be the final straw that breaks Ford's back. Ford's EV venture has turned into a colossal flop. They've lost touch with their core customer base, pushing truck prices sky high, well over $40,000, while the top brass fills their pockets. The result? Ford's headed for the financial abyss. Despite pouring big bucks into it, Ford's foray into the EV market has been a financial disaster. Instead of building practical vehicles, they're churning out overpriced cars loaded with gimmicks that don't resonate with consumers. During their second quarter earnings call, Ford dropped the bombshell. They're bleeding cash, losing a jaw-dropping $32,000 on each electric vehicle they sell. That's nearly half of what they lost in the first quarter of this year. It's a financial bleeding, and CEO Jim Farley's trying to spin it as Ford being a startup. Nice try, but it doesn't hide that they're drowning in red ink. This eye-popping loss is part of a bigger financial mess. Ford predicts a staggering $4.5 billion loss on its EV business, known as Model E, for 2023. That's up from their initial estimate of $3 billion. In the second quarter alone, they lost a gut-wrenching $1.8 billion. Their original plan was to pump out 600,000 EVs annually by the end of 2023. But guess what? They've had to push that deadline back to 2024. As for their dream of manufacturing 2 million EVs per year by 2026, it's floating without a set date. Farley seems unfazed, claiming that the pace of EV adoption will be slower, benefiting early movers like Ford. But here's the hard truth. Ford's far from the profitability line. They need to consistently produce about 100,000 units per quarter to turn a profit, and they're nowhere close. The ongoing price war with Tesla only adds fuel to the fire. So what's the solution? Adam Jonas, a Morgan Stanley analyst, says Ford needs a radical strategy shift, perhaps even collaborating with high-scale EV makers like Tesla. It's a classic, if you can't beat them, join them scenario. Adding to Ford's troubles, their dealers are under fire for greed. Buyers are fed up with the hefty markups, swearing never to return. A recent study revealed that the average price of a new vehicle hit a curious record high of $48,182 in July, up nearly 12% from the previous year. Astonishingly, 80% of buyers paid full price or more for their new cars. But that's not all. Some buyers got hit with fees they'd never heard of before, and 31% ended up with a model that wasn't their first choice. These markups have buyers fuming, with 30% vowing never to use that dealership again and 27% pledging never to buy that brand again. Social media is buzzing with stories of markups ranging from $5,000 to jaw-dropping figures like $50,000. These pricing shenanigans are tarnishing Ford's reputation and causing a PR crisis. The bottom line: Ford's stuck in a quagmire. Their EV efforts are hemorrhaging money, and their dealers are leaving a trail of angry customers. The repercussions for Ford are grim, and they're on a red alert in the EV sector. But Ford isn't one to give up easily. Their history is filled with innovation and resilience. They're investing heavily in research and development to turn their EV fortunes around. They're even considering partnerships and collaborations to cut losses and speed up EV development. But here's the real challenge: convincing people to buy electric cars when most aren't ready to leap. Do you think Ford's making the colossal blunder? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon to stay updated. See you in the next video.